Hi, can I help you? Hey, baby, you're my good boy. You're my good chip. Good baby. Can you up? Come here. He's like, no, I don't want to. Just. Okay, so he was here. He walked off. Come here. So they don't think I'm crazy. Or than I usually am anyway. Okay, he wandered off. Yeah, you wandered off. I'm sure you'll be back, maybe. I don't know. Dog. I don't know. Are you coming back? There we go. Dog. There. Look at the dog for a moment. He stares out the window. And I think he farted. Well, it's appropriate. His butt's in the view. I was going to say, I don't know. All I'm doing is showing you more of his butt. I don't know. Okay, so for the Jinbei cover page series paired video, we are going to be talking about Large Monk Wadatsumi, or Wadatsumi. Since he's kind of the only other named character that pops up in Jinbei's cover page series, I kind of was like, okay, I guess I gotta talk about Wadatsumi. To be fair, Wadatsumi is kind of one of the characters that goes through a redemption type of thing. A redemption arc from when we first meet him, which I'll go through. So, Wadatsumi is a giant tiger blowfish fishman. And he is currently a member of the Sun Pirates. He is a former member of the Flying Pirates under Vanderdecken the Ninth. Wadatsumi is 25 years old. I think I said he was 26 in the other video, in the Jinbei video. I wasn't far off. He's 25. And he is 80 meters tall, or 262 feet and 5 inches tall. He is the largest fishman to date. He is the largest fishman that we have seen in the series to date. He's still not anywhere near as large as some of the giants, or as large as Loki. But he dwarfs Shirahoshi when we see them next to each other. And of course, he gets even bigger when he, puffs himself up, since he's a pufferfish. But that's just kind of the basic information about him. Just kind of into his history. The first time we are introduced to him is during the Fishman Island arc, and it's while the Straw Hats are on their way through the underworld of the sea, where they're going through like the deep sea currents trying to make their way to Fishman Island. Wadatsumi just kind of suddenly appears out of nowhere from the rocks beneath the sea, and he beat an anglerfish, which was there, and with one blow to prevent it from eating the Thousand Sunny. So technically he helps the Straw Hats first. Then, because Vanderdecken wants their treasure. Because Vanderdecken wants to plunder their ship for their treasure. To be clear, I don't honestly know if they have any treasure on the ship right now. I don't remember. I'm going to be doing a reread through the series soon. For the first time in a little while, but I'm going to reread through the series for a different project that I'm working on, but for the channel, but for a different project. That's a much more time-consuming thing, and will probably turn into a series in and of itself. But I don't know, I might track when the Straw Hats have treasure and when they don't have treasure, and what happens with it, just for fun. So, Wadatsumi attacks, then kind of just attacks the ship. And this is during the time frame when Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji have gone out to deal with Tsurume the Kraken, and Wadatsumi is about to attack the Thousand Sunny to try to grab it so that they can take it hostage and they can steal its treasure. When Wadatsumi just ends up getting punched out by the Kraken, by Wadatsumi. or excuse me, by Tsurume. He gets punched out by the Kraken. That has now been tamed by Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. So Wadatsumi just gets knocked out. He gets kind of knocked away, and I believe there's like a volcano in the area, and like the volcano erupts, and Wadatsumi or Vanderdecken ordered Wadatsumi and Koro, I don't remember who Koro was, to try to pull their ship, the Flying Dutchman, away from the magma. As the water temperature rose, because they don't want the Flying Dutchman to, get destroyed. Then we kind of don't see them for a little, we don't see Wadatsumi for a little bit, and then we get back to him at one point during everything else that's going on during the Fishman Island arc. I believe this lines up for when the Straw Hats have been invited to the palace, the Ryugu Palace, and Luffy is talking with Shirahoshi, is I believe what's going on during this time frame. So what ends up happening is Wadatsumi is he just walks on the seafloor because he's so big and he's a fishman and all of that, so he's able to be on the seafloor, and he's like pulling the Flying Dutchman because Vanderdecken tells him to, and he asks him how many, and Vanderdecken asks him, how many years has it been that the Mermaid Princess has not replied to my letters? And Wadatsumi just kind of answers that it's been 10 years. Since Shirahoshi, she still has not replied to Vanderdecken in regards to all of his proposal letters that he throws along with weapons because he's an idiot. And this just makes Vanderdecken mad. So this just is like, we're finding out like this is like what's being discussed while they talk about like, oh, Vanderdecken keeps trying to send marriage proposals along with threats to the castle in order to try to get Shirahoshi to marry him. And of course, Vanderdecken is the reason Shirahoshi is locked in the hard shell tower. Because he marked her so he can throw weapons at her no matter where he is. And no matter where she is, they will always find their way to her. So they keep her in the hard shell tower for her own safety. Of course, and so we have that. So Vanderdecken just gets kind of angry about that, and Wadatsumi is just kind of like, you're the one that asked, is kind of like that conversation. So then a little bit later, when they get to the Noah and the Fishman District, Wadatsumi kind of just watches as Vanderdecken and Hody Jones form their alliance. So we have like that going on there. That alliance is made there. Not a good alliance, but an alliance. And then we have a bit later, after Luffy took Vanderdecken out at Coral Hill, because Vanderdecken shows up there, tries to get Shirahoshi because they find out that she's outside of the palace, and he tries to go after her there. Luffy defeats him there. Vanderdecken is not a threat to Luffy because he's not strong enough to be a threat. He doesn't really become that much of a threat in this regard until he starts sending the Noah at at Shirahoshi. But yeah, there's still that. But Vanderdecken calls, and he calls out Wadatsumi, and Wadatsumi shows up, and he's trying to prevent Shirahoshi from escaping. So this is where we get like the size comparison there, because like Shirahoshi is so giant compared to Luffy, and then Wadatsumi is even bigger compared to Shirahoshi. For that size comparison there. So we have, that going on there. Wadatsumi tries to grab her, doesn't work. Luffy takes him out with a jet pistol, just very easily breaking off one of Wadatsumi's teeth. I don't remember if he ever gets that tooth back, but he breaks one of Wadatsumi's teeth. And Wadatsumi cries, of course, because he's in pain. And Shirahoshi, Luffy, and then their friends escape away from Coral Hill. Later, back at the Fishman District, Wadatsumi had run away, deeply shocked that his captain threw the Noah towards Shirahoshi. So this is when Vanderdecken just gets so effing fed up with everything that's going on, and he's like, screw it. If she won't accept my marriage proposal, I'll just threaten the entire island. So, he essentially, throws the throws the Noah towards Shirahoshi, and Wadatsumi just kind of sees this, and he's just like, oh, that's not good, and he kind of runs away. So then we get to the point where when the Noah and the flying pirates arrive at the plaza, Wadatsumi is, he falls into the plaza and he begs for his life because, he's like begging Vanderdecken to stop the attack, to stop this, because like, I'm here and your men are here and you're going to kill all of us if you send that ship at us. So please stop. So he's trying to beg him for that. And Vanderdecken just replies that he cannot stop the boat any more than he would become, so that and Wadatsumi will just become a necessary sacrifice to end Fishman Island. Just one of the other necessary sacrifices that they're doing in this setup. So we know that during this time frame, Shirahoshi then leaves the plaza and swims away. So she is like swimming away, directing the Noah away from the island. And of course, Luffy, like this is of course when the Straw Hats have their great big entrance where it's all of them together with Jinbei, which is fun. And like them with Shirahoshi showing up to help save, Neptune and the princes at the at the plaza and deal with all of that stuff. And, so that, Shirahoshi leads the ship away from the island to sacrifice herself instead of the entire island. At this point in time, Wadatsumi ends up fighting Tsurume again because Tsurume shows up because he's helping the Straw Hats because he's their friend, and he starts, Wadatsumi Wadatsumi gets beaten up by Tsurume. Vanderdecken then just gets very angry at this, and he's like, what's the point in having a giant that won't fight back? So Zio, who's one of the fishmen on the New Fishman Pirates, talks Wadatsumi into fighting, and he gives him one of the energy steroids. Now, to be clear here, these are the same energy steroids that Hody and the rest of his crew have just been munching like candy this entire time through this arc. Munching like they're candy out of a bag this whole time frame for the energy steroids. I don't think Vanderdecken eats any of the energy steroids. I don't believe so. We know that Hody and the rest of his crew, or the rest of the main part of his crew, eat them, and then they get very, very old by the end of the arc because it rapidly ages you, is what they do, is what the energy steroids do. If you eat too many of them, it's one of the horrible side effects. But I don't think Vanderdecken eats one. If he does, he doesn't eat enough that it like ages him. I don't believe. I don't think he gets aged. But if I'm wrong, then I'm sorry. But Wadatsumi eats one. He only eats one of them. But it's enough to power him up and kind of like rage him out, because it kind of rages you out if you're not used to them. The way that steroids work. So then Wadatsumi then knocks out Tsurume, so he's stronger now. And then we get where Tsurume, so Tsurume gets defeated, unfortunately, by Wadatsumi in this regard. And then Jinbei and then Wadatsumi tries to attack Jinbei, who just manages to deflect the attack, causing Wadatsumi to fall on the ground. Sanji then kicks Wadatsumi in the head, forcing the giant to stand up. Wadatsumi fought against Jinbei and Sanji for a little bit, but regardless of his size, Wadatsumi still felt the pain from the attacks. Because, of course, that's kind of one of those things where it's just like, well, you're like a really big character, so maybe you feel the pain differently, and it's just like, no, they still hurt. It's still Sanji kicking him with his fiery kicks and Jinbei punching him with Fishman Karate. Having a difficult time, what ends up happening is Wadatsumi ends up starting to inflate himself. So he's growing, doubling in size, all the way, from his normal one, he doubles all the way in size. And Sanji is kind of like, okay, and like, because kind of what's happening is like, as Wadatsumi gets bigger, because he's kind of raged out from the energy steroid, is he's also kind of like squishing a bunch of the other members of the Flying Pirates and the the New Fishman Pirates. So he's kind of hurting his own side in this, But what Sanji does is he's standing on Wadatsume's cheek, and he's not afraid of Wadatsumi at all, even in this new form, and he starts mocking him. Sanji starts mocking Wadatsumi, telling him that Tsurume is still bigger than him. So he's goading him into this, which is funny. So what ends up happening is Wadatsumi falls for this, and he sucks in even more air, growing and crushing more of the fisherman pirates as he does. So he's just getting bigger and bigger. And Sanji is still just standing there, firm in his statement, saying that no, Surume is still bigger than you, essentially. And what ends up happening is like all of this is happening, like all of this is like, as we know from just the way that the story works, is like as Luffy, we cut back and forth between like Luffy and his fight with whatever the main boss is of the arc. We cut back and forth with each of the Straw Hats, generally having either some kind of battle conflict that they're having to deal with. And in this case, it's Sanji and Jinbei working together to deal with Wadatsumi. To be fair, I'm pretty sure both Sanji and Jinbei would have been very easily able to defeat Wadatsumi at this point in time. That's kind of the point of like post-time skip in the beginning. It's like, Hody is more of just kind of like a little bit of a test for Luffy, but he's still pretty easily to defeat him. Same thing with like Caesar once Luffy figures out how to fight Caesar. And then Dofi's like the big, Dofi's the big, the big obstacle. And, when they first, post time skip, Dofi's like that first really big obstacle. But like Wadatsumi is like, he's not really that big of an obstacle. Well, he's a huge obstacle. He's literally huge. But in regards to dealing with, power-wise or as an enemy, Sanji and Jinbei could have very easily taken care of Wadatsumi on their own without, just separately. But what ends up happening, but this also just kind of shows, the way that Jinbei would work with the crew as a member of the crew, like teamwork and stuff like that. And it's him paired up with Sanji in that regard. But what ends up happening is, well, Luffy is off fighting Hody, and the Noah, like, pummeling Hody and pummeling the Noah to, destroy it, to make it, stop, and they knock out Vanderdeck and all in this time frame as well. So, the boat stops and it falls, and the Sea Kings catch it and everything. So it doesn't crush Fishman Island. But Sanji just stands there on an almost spherical version of Wadatsumi, since he's inhaled so much. And he's just like, no, he's just, he's like, he's like covering his mouth, and he's like, so are you impressed yet? I don't know if you heard it. It was like, so are you impressed yet? Like, are you surprised yet by how big I can get? And Sanji's just like, yeah, no, And, so they're executing their plan, essentially. So what ends up happening is Jinbei surrounds his right hand in water, and he hits Wadatsumi with one of the brick, 10,000 brick fists, whichever one it is, hits him with that, and ends up, sends him up, is I think what happens. He sends him up, and then Wadatsumi starts rolling away. And he says he can't hold in his breath any longer. He releases it, and this just causes him to blast himself off. And I believe he essentially acts like a balloon, a deflated balloon. I had a balloon downstairs. I could have brought it up and just gone like, but I'm like, nah, not yet. So what then ends up happening is Sanji ends up kind of just activating his, this is where we get to see like hell memories for the first time. Sanji, he, like gets his leg lit up and he gets his attack ready, and he just kicks Wadatsumi, and it just completely, like Wadatsumi just gets set on fire, and he's completely scorched and everything. And so we get like the hell memories there from Sanji for the first time, I believe. And so Wadatsumi just gets like scorched by the attack, unfortunately. So he's pretty easily taken out there, not really that much. And so Wadatsumi gets defeated, and he gets knocked unconscious and everything. And he falls on a bunch of the other fishermen pirates that are there, so he just flattens more of them. So, unlike the other members of the fishermen pirates and Vanderdecken, who get captured and locked up, and then age very rapidly, Wadatsumi does not get locked up on Fishman Island. He ends up getting carried away by Surume because he's so big that he won't fit in any of the prisons that they have on Fishman Island. They don't have any prisons that they could put him in that would be big enough to put him in. So Surume just like picks him up and then carries him away to the far reaches of the ocean. I would say not necessarily far enough, I guess, but like, yeah, whatever. carries him away. And he's essentially just put into exile. He's banished from Fishman Island. So that's just kind of where his story ends for that part for Fishman Island. Then we get into Jinbei's journey. So we have Jinbei's, solo journey, him going around. And at some point in time, Wadatsumi, after his like little travels, after he gets exiled, he's like, okay, I did get beat up by Straw Hat's crew, and they beat Hody and Vanderdecken, and they were, and Jinbei, Boss Jinbei was with him, so he kind of like, Wadatsumi decides that he wants to find someone that he can help. He's caused a bunch of trouble, so he wants to try to help someone. So he comes across this port town, and he sees that they have this post to a sea god. So, in return for the offerings that Wadatsumi takes, as in given to him, he takes them, Wadatsumi goes down and he sees that there is these ruins, ancient looking ruins on the bottom of the ocean. And he just goes and picks them up and then flings them up onto the beach. Yeah, no, that was a bad idea. Those ruins were home to a bunch of sea beasts that live down there. And what ends up happening is that, of course, Jinbei shows up. And Wadatsumi took the offerings and he's eating the offerings. Jinbei shows up and is like, okay, Wadatsumi, I see what you did. Scolds him. He's destroyed 2 towns now due to his carelessness. He destroyed the town that he was trying to help, that was the port town, the human port town, because he threw the ruins up there, and then the part of the town and all of their boats got destroyed because the sea beasts, whose home he threw up there, are angry, which is fair. So Wadatsumi gets scolded by Jinbei. He then goes and he apologizes to the town folk and to the sea beasts and all of this stuff. So he apologizes for all the trouble that he caused. From there, they all make peace with each other. And Jinbei, Wadatsumi, the locals, and the sea beasts all then just decide to have like a big feast together, a big party, since, Jinbei kind of helped work everything out. The next day, since Wadatsumi really doesn't have anywhere else he can go at this point in time, he can't go back to Fishman Island. He's been banished, and he probably would get a bit lonely. Wadatsumi he's, as I said, he's like 25, but they give him kind of like the childish voice, kind of like they do with Fukuro. Well, they give him more of like the childish sounding voice on the very large adult man. Not to the extent that they did with Pika with the very high squeaky voice, but they still kind of, do that kind of higher pitched childish voice with Wadatsumi. And I don't know if that's them trying to mess with, like, trying to show that he doesn't have very high intelligence or what. I'm not sure. But Wadatsumi decides to ask Jinbei if he can come with him. And Jinbei accepts. And they head off. They leave the port town with, the sea beasts and the humans now kind of pretty much living together fairly well. And Jinbei and Wadatsumi then head back to where Jinbei was headed, which turns out to be Big Mom's territory, Totland, and Whole Cake Island. So then we get into the Whole Cake Island arc, and Wadatsumi and the Sun Pirates are talking with Jinbei while he's discussing his invitation to leave the Big Mom Pirates and to join Luffy's crew, to join the Straw Hats. And the rest of the crew are all, the rest of the Sun Pirates are just like, Jinbei has done so much for them and everything else like that. So they are like, Jinbei, you have done so much for us and for Fishman Island. Go and do something for yourself. Go and join the Straw Hats. And they encourage him to do this. And Jinbei kind of apologizes to Wadatsumi for bringing him such a long way, and now he's kind of abandoning him. And Wadatsumi says that it's fine. He's made friends with the other Sun Pirates, so he's happy to stay with them. He's happy to stay with the other Sun Pirates, with Aladdin in charge and all of that. So we have that nice thing. Later, Wadatsumi and the Sun Pirates, they're instructed by Jinbei to leave Totland during the wedding ceremony due to the security being much busier around the island as opposed to further away from the island, so they would be able to escape. But what ends up happening is, while the everything happens at the wedding, chaos ensues, this cake is destroyed, Big Mom goes crazy, all of this stuff. And what ends up happening is, of course, we know that Aladdin and Praline, well, Praline with her singing, she is able to essentially like scramble the security slug things that they have, security monitor slugs that they have. She's able to kind of just like disorientate them enough so they're able to use that to help the Sunny get further away or escape a bit better. And, so they're trying, they arrive at Cacao Island when Jinbei and the Straw Hats are trying to escape. This is also when like Luffy and Sanji are now back on the ship. They're reunited there. So they're trying to help get everybody out of the island, out of Totland. So what is happening is essentially, Wadatsumi actually saves the Sunny because, Charlotte Oven has, used his heat fruit, his cook fruit or whatever. It's not cook fruit, the heat fruit that he has, where he is just heating up his fist and he's heating up the ocean in order to try to like essentially burn the Sunny is his intention. And he is almost about to succeed. They're about to, destroy the Sunny. Wadatsumi pulls a bait and switch. Well, he's probably being told to do this by Aladdin, but still. He pulls a bait and switch where Wadatsumi shows up and he manages to grab the Sunny, pull it into the water with everybody else there. Everybody's still on it. Hopefully they all took a deep breath and somebody's being careful of all the devil fruit users on that boat right now. And he swaps it with the Angler, which is the ship of the Fishman Pirate, with a ship of the Sun Pirates. And he swaps the ship so it's the Angler that actually blows up from Oven's attack. And he grabs the Thousand Sunny, and I believe he puts the Sunny in his mouth so there's like air there for like for the Straw Hats to breathe. For the humans to breathe, and he's like swimming as fast as he can to try to get them as far away as possible before he runs out of air and he has to let them out. So he's swimming. Oven keeps making the ocean hotter and hotter and hotter, so he's like aiming his heat waves at Wadatsumi, and he like hits Wadatsumi with the heat waves, which forces Wadatsumi to spit out the Sunny. Thankfully, they got far enough away, and like Wadatsumi is like apologizing to the Straw Hats for all the trouble that he caused them on Fishman Island, and like they see that he's joined the Sun Pirates now, so and Wadatsumi along with the rest of the Sun Pirates, and then Jinbei going back as well, stay to hold off Big Mom's crew, while Luffy and the others and the rest of the Straw Hats that are on the Sunny are able to then escape out of Totland. And so Wadatsumi helps and stays with that. Helps to work on trying to he's working on making amends for what he did. He knows that what he did at Fishman Island was wrong, and he's apologized to the Straw Hats, he's apologized to Jinbei, he's trying to be better, and I would say that Wadatsumi is one of those characters that has gone through like his redemption arc, and I like that. I like that Oda did that. It's not like this major character that we see go through this overall huge redemption arc, kind of like what we got with Robin to a degree, and what we've seen with some of the other characters throughout the story that go through these, where they start off as not the best character, and then stuff happens, we find out more about their backstory. We don't ever really find out anything about Wadatsume's backstory. We just know how old he is. And assumedly, he probably grew up in the Fishman district, just like most of the other fishmen and merfolk and everything, was going in and out of Fishman Island and being there is probably just like been his life. And then eventually he gets recruited by Vanderdecken to work for him. And I don't think Wadatsumi ever fully, bought into the like Fishman supremacy type stuff that Hody spouted and stuff like that. I don't think that Wadatsumi ever bought into that or fully bought into it. It was just kind of like, well, Vanderdecken's my captain. I'm on his crew, so I gotta follow his orders. And then, of course, he gets betrayed by Vanderdecken, and then he's just used more by Hody and the Sun and the new Fishmen pirates. And, he gets tricked into taking steroids, or not tricked into taking steroids. He takes the steroids. And since he only took one, it doesn't really have like the adverse side effects of like rapidly aging him. If anything, it would, like, if there is any type of like additional aging that happened to him, it wouldn't be very much, since he wasn't popping those things like candy the way that Hody and the others were. And what ends up happening is, so, like, we get like this redemption arc for him. He decides that he wants to try to help, so he tries to help, and he doesn't do it in the best way because he doesn't get all the information that he needs. And then now that he has, and then Jinbei helps him, so he is able to help try to make things right. And then he's, helping Jinbei, and he joins the Sun Pirates. And then now he's, he helps with kind of technically kind of sacrificing himself, but he's like making up for like the trouble that he caused to Straw Hats and everything back on Fishman Island. So he genuinely does get better. He is one of those characters that, like, no, he does get a redemption arc. It's not an over-the-top one, because it's not like he went from an exceedingly racist, horrible character to a very, very good character like we see with, like, Milzigard or something. He doesn't go through, like, that whole swing, but he goes from, like, the, okay, I kind of, I'm, causes problems for people, and he's like, okay, now I want to do better. It's kind of like the pendulum swing that he has. So we have that. And that, too, at least as of the moment of the recording of this video, that is the last time that we have seen Wadatsumi. Jinbei does confirm that these Sun Pirates do all manage to escape Totland. And that Jinbei and them had like a big party afterwards when like he gets to Wano, he tells the Straw Hats that. He's like, oh yeah, they're fine. Aladdin and the others are fine. We all managed to escape. We need a new boat, or they need a new boat, but they need a new ship, but they'll be fine. So like that's essentially what happened. I guess the Sun Pirates are kind of in a similar situation to what would happen with the Straw Hats if Loki joined, just because how big Wadatsumi is compared to the ship. They would need literally a giant ship, if not an even bigger ship, for Wadatsumi to be on, for it to even be remotely the right size for him. But since he's a fishman, he can just like swim along in the water and he's fine. That's like a similar thing to like, well, if Loki joins the Straw Hats, it's a lot of stuff of like, well, Loki's really, really, really big, and he isn't gonna fit on the Thousand Sunny, so what are you gonna do? Drag him along on a raft behind you? Get a giant ship to just like sail alongside the Sunny with just Loki on it? Just have him turn into his, meat hog form all the time and fly around. I don't know. There's so many jokes about that. I've seen so much adorable fan art of just like giant Loki interacting with tiny Straw Hats on random adventures. But that's what I have for this. Just Wadatsumi, again, he's not a major character, but he is one that goes through a bit of a redemption. And he gets better. We might see him again at some point. I would like it if the Sun Pirates showed back up at some point and were I'm not going to say like relevant, because that could still happen, that they could still end up technically being like relevant down the line, but like have them show back up again at some point, with them reading about stuff in the newspaper where we see them. Or I'm surprised we didn't see the Sun Pirates at some point during Vegapunk's message. We saw Fishman Island because we saw Shirahoshi and Neptune and such, but we didn't see any of the Sun Pirates, I don't think, for like them listening to the broadcast or anything like that. Or even just like them reading about it later in the paper. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But that's what I have here for Wadatsumi. I thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And Chip, baby.